Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 25 of the Deercast. We are joined today by Curtis Pitts of Curtis Pitts Deer Services. I'm going to make Curtis blush here because actually my wife said I think he's your best looking podcast guest so far, and she was actually disappointed that Curtis wasn't coming to our house to record this podcast. But aside from being a very handsome chap, Curtis is a deer manager, fair to probably say, hopefully, Curtis, a wild game butcher, supplier to lots of different restaurants, chefs, etc. And also manages some park deer, judging by your website, Curtis. And hopefully, you're going to tell us all about that in due course. So welcome to the podcast, Curtis.
Good evening, gents. Thank you very much for having me in. Some very kind words there. I'm not sure what that says about the previous guests, but we'll take the compliment. Fantastic. Pleasure to be on and talk to you and your listeners. A little bit about myself. I'm currently 27. I started the business as we see it today back in 2017 while studying at Cirencester at the Royal Agricultural University to be a land agent at that point. So that was the initial goal when I was at uni there, but ended up coming home at weekends and following my passion and hobby at that point. My grandfather and father both were mad into deer stalking. I think Grandad harvested his first fallow carcass at the age of 16 and took it home on the push bike, and he's now 86. So you can imagine what it was like back in the day back then and how he went about harvesting a fallow carcass. And then they've managed that same block of land and it's grown from there and developed, and Dad took it on as soon as he was able to. And I can remember being in a car seat in the back of a Isuzu rodeo pickup going out with Dad driving and collecting carcasses in the morning after a morning stalk and that sort of stuff. So that was my first introduction to deer management per se, and wild deer stalking was, as I say, literally in a car seat in the back of a pickup. I've got a vivid memory of Dad harvesting a rodo. He just jumped out of the truck and shot it off the sticks, and I was still in the car seat and saw it all through the window at probably the age of 3, 4, 5. I don't know whatever age I was at, but yeah, certainly that's where it all started for me. Lucky to have been brought into deer management and deer stalking then, and as for Grandad and Dad, it was both a hobby. They both had day jobs, and all their carcasses near enough went to the game dealer, a few local restaurants, backdoor style as it would have been. But yeah, went to the restaurant. So I grew up with it in that respect. Was lucky enough to get my first rifle when I was 16 or 17, having been mentored by Dad and obviously been out with the 2.2 and stuff like that previously, but first deer caliber, which was a 6.5 by 55. Which was fantastic. That was a big achievement from my point of view, and started stalking from then. And then of course, as soon as I could drive, it was out every possible opportunity, and very lucky with what Grandad and Dad already had. They were managing about 3,000 acres of predominantly fallow, wild fallow, few roe mixed in, but predominantly fallow. And then we've grown it from there with me having a bit more interest in it. So it's grown from there to now what we're managing today. So no, it's been good.
And if you don't mind me asking, are the older generation still, or well, are they involved in your business? I mean, it is named after you, or have you kept them very much at sort of arm's length, and it's your train set?
So Grandad loves coming out. He'll come out 2 or 3 times a season. As I say, he is 86 now, but don't get me wrong, he'll come out. He still is driving a 110 Landy. He'll go out with the binos more than he'll go out with the rifle, is the honest answer. But yeah, he'll be out every rut, every fallow rut. He'll be out just watching what's going on with, as I say, with the binos, not with the rifle, just to see what's going on. Dad will get out and help me as much as he can. He enjoys coming out on some of the red ground we've got now because it's different to what he had back when he was doing it all the time. But sadly, his work commitments do limit him a little bit. So he's busy with his own business and isn't out quite as much as I think he'd like. But hopefully he'll get a bit more time now as he gets older, and hopefully gets out a bit more with me. But yeah, no, it is predominantly me. I'm very lucky that I've got a good team. I've got another chap on full time with us within the business that helps out, does a little bit of stalking, but is mainly in the larder processing. And then we've got another chap on part time as well that helps out in the larder with the butchery side of stuff, because I'm not a professional butcher, but I've certainly been lucky that, as I say, Grandad did a bit to the pubs and restaurants and had a tenant in one of the cottages at that point that was a butcher. And I've learned some skills from him as he was butchering stuff for Grandad, and then taking it our own way and how we process stuff today with what we do. So yeah, no, Dad and Grandad both would love to be out as much as possible, but sadly probably only harvest a handful of deer a season now.
And because as well as venison, we should point out your business also, and this, I'm just going on what I've seen on the website and Instagram and all the rest of it. I think I've seen rabbit, hare, pheasant, partridge,
wild mallard.
Yeah.
We're really lucky. And the whole thing for me, when I started it in 2017, obviously I'd been harvesting fallow previous to that, and reds and roe and other venison carcasses and rabbits, and we had been doing bits and pieces with it. We'd been enjoying it ourselves in the kitchen because I enjoy cooking, and we've been processing quite a number, but the inevitability of what we'd been were harvesting back then, some proportion was going to the game dealer. So it was a big thing for me that I wanted to use it all. We wanted to be as sustainable as possible, and everything that we harvested we wanted to be able to use and develop into something. And we had landowners with rabbit issues, and we were also managing wild deer on pheasant shoots, and from a massive commercial scale to your small pheasant shoot. And the small pheasant shoot kind of thing is where I got my teeth into, because Grandad runs a little pheasant shoot on his farm at home. We're talking every other Thursday harvesting 50 to 60 pheasants and partridge mix. So we started plucking them to start with. So as I say, we're literally talking 50 or 60 pheasants a fortnight, not even a week. It's grown from there just because of the product. And now we like to offer to our online customers as much venison in the game as possible. Rabbit, hare, where it's sustainably harvestable. The pheasant and partridge, well, we all know we can't not get enough of that. There's ample supply of it. It's just getting the demand for it in the same way. So we're building it, but it's not the main focus of the business. The venison is, because that is my true passion. But to complement the venison, it's nice to be able to offer the wild mallard, the partridge, pheasant, the wood pigeon. Wood pigeon at this time of year, being in March, has become more popular. We've lost our pheasant and partridge now with seasonability, and our mallard. So we're pushing our wood pigeon, we're pushing our rabbit and the venison. So and believe it or not, rabbit is our best-selling product.
Wow, really?
Above and beyond anything else. Yeah, if we're putting out 500 whole rabbits a week, we still sell out. It's something I never thought would. Yeah,
that's so surprising. Yeah, I always thought that I always thought it was hard enough to get people to eat venison, let alone to eat something like as cute as a rabbit. In some people's minds, is that coming from consumers or restaurants, or where's that demand sort of come from, if you like?
In all honesty, it's across the board. So as a business now, we supply the wholesale trade, so your high street butcher, all the way through to your big wholesaler that then ships it nationwide. We supply your catering trade, so your pubs, your restaurants, your Michelin star restaurants, and your hotels. And then we do the online side of things, which is, I say, relatively new. We've been doing it for 2 or 3 years, but that's something that's really grown, post and during COVID. And that is, it's amazing what people come to us online for. I suppose being niche and being purely venison and game, it's not like just walking into your butcher shop where you've got your beef, your lamb, your chicken, your pork, you've got everything. We are, the customers that we get come online and purchase from our website are specifically looking for different things. And I would say that a good 75% of our rabbits a week, so we're talking 350, 400 dressed rabbits, whether they're A grade or B grade, because we do differentiate. So you've got the shoulder shot stuff with the 2-2 that is a B grade in our minds, or you've got a perfectly clean rabbit that's A grade. Between those two products, 75% probably do go out with DPD nationwide delivery across the UK each week. So the consumers are obviously interested in different places. And squirrels is another thing that, you know,
really,
we've got restaurants doing spatchcock squirrel haunches, so little squirrel skewers and stuff like that, squirrel saddles.
I didn't know a squirrel had a saddle, to be fair. That's knowledge to me.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be worth it for an animal that size, but
they're tricky to skin.
Yeah.
But once you've got them skinned off and got a nice, a whole squirrel, you can butcher it down into its two rear legs, haunches, whichever you'd like to call them, and then its back and its back straps. And the restaurants, we've got some restaurants that are loving them, little starters or appetizers. And then we've the online side of things. We haven't actually got them live on the website at the moment. They go on and off depending on when we get them. But we work with our estates that we're managing fallow on, that have got gamekeepers that are running the pheasant side of stuff, and whether they're out trapping squirrels for us, or whether all different manners of conservation to look after the woodlands that the keepers work so hard to look after, as well as the pheasants. Just doing something with that product instead of it being wasted. And dare I say, it's a fantastic meat as well. It's a lovely little delicacy, and the rabbit is not something, having haunched quite a few rabbits in my time from a kid upwards, the smell of gutting a rabbit kind of, you'd think, puts you off. But once you've actually had a nice rabbit dish, whether it's a casserole, a stew, or even just a rabbit saddle and loin, which we've got a restaurant at the moment that's having haunches on their appetizers, and then they're having little rabbit saddles as a main dish, and it's a beautiful dish. It's fantastic.
So can I ask, with the squirrels in particular, was that a customer that came to you and said, we want squirrels on our menu, or is it you going, look, we've got access to this many squirrels, let's put them out there and see if anyone wants them? Which way round did that come?
I'd love to say it was me trying to be clever and doing something with the product, but the honest answer is we had a restaurant come to us up in London and say, can you get us squirrels? We want them for X. And that was back in, probably 2 years ago now. And we went, well, I'm sure we can. Yes, we've got keepers out there that are harvesting them, and let's do something with the product. So it was someone coming to us and asking for it. And then I thought, well, let's see if we can actually make this something to go forwards. And it's got the interest, but that sort of thing, the rabbits, the squirrels are great. The pheasants and the partridge have got more and more interest, and we find that across the summer months as well, out of season, you get a lot of interest in an oven ready pheasant and an oven ready partridge, which is different. But like today, in today's online orders, I've sent out 37 oven ready pheasants in just today's consignment. So you go, well, we're now in the 12th of March. It's what.
Yeah.
But the interest is definitely growing from the public. I've only been in the industry a small time compared to some of the game dealers. Not that we're like that, but like the people that do that sort of things. But we've definitely seen change in the last 2 or 3 years. Of venison is selling fantastically, but the small fur game, squirrels, rabbits, have certainly got a lot of traction, and the feather game's building. It's got a long way to go to match its industry. But it's definitely building, which is great, and it all complements one another, and hopefully complements the industry as a whole, with getting the products to people's tables, which is what this whole business, in my opinion, started about. We're deer managers first and foremost, and doing that deer management plan that we put out in June, July to do throughout the season is definitely the number one goal. But I'm very proud to say now that every carcass we harvest throughout the season is, it gets skinned and processed, other than a contract we've got that goes out in the fur. But otherwise, nothing goes to the game dealer per se. It all goes direct to the table.
Fantastic.
I think I might be about to drop you in hot water here and do some quite interesting things, in that you also sell hides and antlers and other bits and pieces. So it sort of seems like, and I suspect it's probably not every single carcass necessarily, not every single hide gets sold, but a proportion of them does, by the looks of things on your website. And is that something you guys do in house, or is that shipped out of house and then sort of brought back in to be sold, or what's the situation?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be as zero waste as possible. we're harvesting a fantastic product, whatever it may be, and trying to be as zero waste as possible is definitely one of our ethoses. And our venison hides, I'll be honest, there is only a very small window each season where you can harvest a nice summer coat where the hide is not slipping and it's not in a change of coat. If you think as soon as we start harvesting in August, September, October, they're transitioning from summer coat to winter coat, and vice versa. At the end of the season now, March, April, we've got winter coats starting. Well, I mean, in the current weather, they're not going to think about a summer coat for a day or two. But you're always in a transition period, so you can get a fantastic fixed winter coat, no trouble at all. But so certainly with the fallow, it's not as pretty as a lovely summer light coat. But the very sadly small parts of the year that we can harvest that hide that is in a fantastic stable fixed coat, we can then harvest those hides, salt them down. There's some fantastic organic tanneries, one up in Wales, another one down here in Devon where we're based, and then there is also some tanneries on the continent, Poland being one place that we can send off our hides and get them tanned to really professional high standard and brought back to us. So we don't do that in house, but we do our antlers, whether it's for interior design or for dog chews. And I'll be honest, we don't tend to harvest any antlers that are of any visual excitement, so mainly they go to the dog chew market. And then even just the things like our offal, like heart, livers, lungs, kidneys, even the tripe for the people that like tripe broth and different things like that, we try and use it all. We had a customer come on the other day and say that they're this is actually back at Christmas, they had ox tongue as a kid and they had tongue was a big thing, so they purchased 12 red deer tongues off us. And I got a picture on Boxing Day of they had it on Christmas Day and they'd put it in a tongue press, boiled it up, taken off that top layer and had that as a product. So niche, definitely different, not something I've ever tried, but if
you're opening my eyes here to so much different cuisine. I'm going to try squirrels. I'm going to try deer tongue. I've never eaten a squirrel in my life. So that's going to be on my menu.
Squirrel you'll enjoy. Squirrel is something that, although I personally view it as our tree rats, our little grey squirrel, it is a lovely product. Yeah, it's a nice eating product. And
to be fair, and massive plug for Curtis here, but you do isn't it next day delivery on your online shop or within 48 hours or something?
Yeah, so we do 24-day delivery. We don't dispatch every day of the week, so it's a bit misleading in the fact that it's not next day as in from the day you order, it's next day from the day that we ship, because we only ship a few, we don't ship 7 days a week, put it that way.
So I could order one today and have it for the weekend?
You certainly could, yeah, as long as you order by Wednesday lunchtime, it'll be with you before the weekend.
That sounds like an Instagram live. I think you should order one, cook it, and eat it live on Instagram and tell everyone what squirrel's like.
I think I might need some recipe suggestions from you, Curtis.
Exactly. Well, look, you can sounds like by the end of this podcast, we'll be putting together a box of all sorts to ship up for you guys to try this weekend.
And do they come skinned?
Yeah, so we skin the scares. We do rabbits in the fur because there are, we work with a few Boy Scouts and that sort of thing and survival schools where it's nice to that they enjoy skinning them and part of the process. So we do send out pigeons in the feather, pheasants in the feather, and rabbits in the fur for people to do a bit of home butchery, which is something that's also growing. And we introduced a butchery masterclass back in, well, it must have been in COVID years, because the first 5 or 6 were virtual over Zoom, which went down really well. And then we started inviting people down to our larder here in Devon, and certainly a fantastic birthday present or Christmas present, it seems, for the people that have got the interest in it. And people going from skinning a carcass all the way through to breaking it down and taking it home as sausage, burgers, steaks, roasting joints, mince, etc. It's great to see that the general public, even the people that aren't interested in pulling the trigger, we had a couple of, my husband and wife came 2 weeks ago and they had zero interest in stalking, zero interest in shotgun shooting. They weren't from a field sports background at all. They just wanted to know where their food came from, and they came down and we skinned 2 fallow carcasses. They broke a fallow carcass down between them. I broke a fallow carcass down as a demonstration in front of them, step by step. They were with me for 4 hours and went away with, half a fallow carcass. And now on our website, you can order whole carcasses that we send out in primal. So the primal sections are the rear haunches, the saddle, and the front shoulders and the neck. And, we get a lot of people ordering them to break down at home into their own personal cuts. So it's nice to see.
I thought you were about to say you send out whole skin fallow carcasses as a whole, and I was like, that I can just picture DPD trying to deliver that now, can't you? This will go to the letterbox.
Bags,
yeah. Sadly, that wouldn't go down at the FSA too well.
No.
And the sort of mail order side of your business, when did that? Was that a consequence of COVID, or was that something you were doing before that?
We dabbled with it just to try and obviously open up our customer base. I think it was just at the beginning of COVID, which, in hindsight was very good timing. So I dabbled with a Wix website that you went online, and I'm no technology buff myself, but, put a website together on Wix and paid a subscription to have it online monthly. And it was very rudimental, to say the least, but it did a job. And then sadly COVID came along, and no one could go to our high street butchers that we're supplying, or the restaurants that we're supplying. So overnight, that side of our company obviously really took a hit, which was tough at the time. I was just starting out, quite young at that age, and it was like, well, what do we do now? And we had the website, as I say, in a very rudimental way in the background, and luckily it got a bit of traction. I don't mean by we said we did 10 to 15 consignments a week, but it meant that the 5 or 6 deer at that point we were culling a week were all going out the door and had a purpose, which is what we wanted. So it kind of built from there. And then it grew. We updated our website and got a professional company to build the website rather than my bodge. And it's grown from there, and we're now looking at sending out 60 to 80 consignments a week in the last, this season. So it's growing quite a lot from that point of view. And that's and it amazes me, because we do charge delivery, because we're of a business of a size where I can't sadly make that disappear at the moment, which I'd love to be able to, hopefully in time. But you'll get people order 2 packs of mints, so they're ordering a kilo worth of mints, 2 500-gram trays, and still paying delivery on it, and they're suitably happy. So it's great that people are buying online, and it's working, and it's opened up doors for our point of view for getting those carcasses that we're managing sold. But it's also, hopefully allowing the British public to get access to venison and game that, inherently people have perceived to be A, expensive, and B, hard to get hold of. So, and I'd like to say that our price point online isn't extortionate for the product, and it does make it favourable for people to try venison if they've never tried it before.
Yeah. I think I'm going to make you blush again for the second time, Curtis, but I've seen you on BBC News once talking about venison, and then I think you told us you're about to be on television. Is it tomorrow night, or is it tonight? Sorry, you're about to be on television.
It's tomorrow night. Yeah,
tomorrow night.
It's promoting. Indeed, yes. Yeah. No, the BBC was a deer management sort of population density type conversation, which was great. We've got high densities of fallow and red deer down here in Devon, along with the rest of the southwest. But that was a good point to put across, because we were looking at the urban fringes of cities like Plymouth and Exeter, both of which have got good population densities of wild fallow right on the urban fringes. Plymouth certainly in a more significant way, where they're literally within the houses now, photographed by the public every night of the week or during the day, which is becoming, or has become, definitely an issue down in the area. We did a piece for BBC there. And then we're very lucky to supply one of the chefs in the southwest region of Great British Menu, which is airing on the 12th of March, 13th of March, and 14th of March. And she's very kindly cooking her main course dish as a piece of venison. So we've just got a little snippet in that, which I don't know what it will be yet because I've not seen it, but hopefully a little snippet there showing about where Ellie sources her venison from and where it's come from.
Brilliant.
Which is the important bit.
Yeah, and it's great publicity for the sport, for the meat, for all of these things that definitely needs as much airtime as possible. And I was going to ask, how much, as a proportion of the amount of venison you sell, how much of it is through the online trade, shipping it, etc., versus the sort of more traditional butchers, pubs, etc.?
In complete honesty, so we operate as a season from the 1st of August to the end of April. So we don't do anything in the 3 summer months. I try and keep it as seasonal as possible. Although obviously we could harvest certain species, we shut down and just do our season August to April, and it varies. Is the honest answer. If you looked at the business last year, you would have said that it was 30% through the website, a good 25-30% through the wholesale, and then the rest with the chefs. Well, this year we've probably done the majority through the website and straight to the door of the consumer, but then we've done really well with some of our bigger wholesalers buying whole carcasses to butcher for there, and then the restaurant trade's done fantastically, but carcass proportion and carcass breakdown when it comes to chefs isn't always the best. So they're always after your loins, your high end cuts are 6 ounce haunch steaks or that side of stuff. So you've got your trim for your mince, your burgers, your sausages, your meatballs, your sausage meat, all those products that we turn that into, and you've got elements of a carcass that's left behind. So it's hard to put a number on how many carcasses per se the hospitality industry takes. But as a breakdown, I would say we're creeping up towards 50-55% online now. Restaurants probably taking a good 30%, and we're as a business slightly migrating towards the restaurants and online from a wholesale point of view, just because of how it works from our, we have got 2 vans covering the southwest delivering ourselves, and then the rest goes nationwide. So it works.
Wow. And as a bit of a follow-up to that, do you think there's more of the general public buying venison now than ever before, or do you think it's more a sense of people just sort of cutting the middleman out and not buying it through the butcher or the game dealer rather than just ordering it online?
I think there's a bit of both. I would definitely say venison, wild venison, parkland venison, both of which we do, is definitely got a foot in the door. Definitely with the consumer, the person at home eating it, and whether they're buying through us directly or whether they're buying through the high street butcher. We've got some of our high street butchers that are having 2-3 carcasses a week off us. So it's not like they're not doing a throughput and not doing a tonnage of product throughout a season. So they're doing fantastically, whether it's on the high street or whether it's direct from us. We've got one of our wholesalers at the moment, even in March post Christmas, which February, March is probably our quietest time of the year, and it builds at the end of March, April for Easter and that sort of thing. But February, March, we've got one wholesaler that's still having 6 carcasses a week. So they've obviously got the throughput through the door and are shifting it in that respect as well. So, you're seeing a good purchase rate across the board, and the restaurants, we're definitely seeing restaurants extending their dining period for the seasonality of when they change to spring lamb, say, or when they pick us up. Normally, when we first started, you get restaurants put venison on the menu in late September, early October in the winter months as a winter menu option. Well, now we'll see certainly our regular restaurants, they'll pick venison up as soon as they can get hold of it, and they'll drop it when we tell them they can't have any more, which is fantastic. And we've just started to see a few of the restaurants changing their menus now in the last couple of weeks across to lamb and more seasonal products, because we've got to be honest and say venison isn't a strong spring product, but it certainly is something you can consume all year round and be enjoyed spring, summer, winter, autumn. There's nothing stopping you thinking it's just a winter meat anymore.
We've been very selfish in that Harry and I have asked you all the questions we wanted to ask you, and it's probably only now fair that we ask you some of the questions that our listeners have sent in. So I'm going to apologise to you, Curtis, because it probably feels like a complete interrogation, this podcast so far.
So
a question which I think every single one of our podcast guests has been asked, and is probably one that I would have asked if someone else hadn't asked it. And this is from Finn Bainbridge on Instagram. He said, if you could only have one caliber for everything, what would it be? And I presume by that he means deer rather than squirrels and your reds, because I mean that's quite a tall order for one caliber. But
one caliber, yes. Well, in all honesty, I haven't really travelled far when it comes to rifles and calibers. I started off life with a 6.5 by 55. It was, believe it or not, a single action, no magazine, anything like that. It was an old target rifle for competition use. And I started life off with that. And then when I changed, which was probably 2 years into owning that rifle, I changed to a 6.5 by 284. And that is all I have ever shot. I would be lying if I said I didn't have a 250 in the cabinet as well, which we use for boxing in the summer. And obviously I've got a 2.2 in the cabinet. But that is my cabinet, is 3 rifles, the 2.2, the 250, and then the 6.5 by 284. And from a deer management point of view, it's the 284 all the time. That's the only rifle I own that A, is deer legal, and B, that I go to. It is a work tool. Realistically, it is out in the season probably 5 to 6 days a week, in all weathers. It does get used and abused, but it's one of those, I've got to have faith in that piece of kit to be able to pick it up and know it will do exactly what I want. And for me, chopping and changing would be too distracting. So yeah, no, that's all I use.
I don't think we've ever had that caliber mentioned on the podcast before. So there you go, podcast first.
Yeah, no, fantastic for what we do for shot placement and everything. So it does what I need it to do.
Excellent. And this is another nerdy kit related question, and I would say, judging by this, someone's either stalked you they've definitely stalked you online. Well, actually, it's from the same person, Finn Bainbridge again. Said, are your sticks homemade? If so, where are your rubber tops from?
Very good. So the sticks he's referring to there, Finn, are my green garden poles. So yes, they are certainly homemade. Any garden centre you go to, you can get the green coated aluminium bamboo canes per se, and some of Amazon's finest shrink wrap on the tops of them to make them less noisy in the wind. But I'll be honest and say I have retired them only probably 2 months ago, having used them for the whole of my stalking career, changing poles when they rusted out, bent, snapped, whatever went wrong with them. I just used to add a new pole, but I got converted into a set of Viperflex sticks, as I say, 2 months ago, when someone forced them upon me, and I realised what I was missing is the truth of the matter. So I was then very kindly given a pair with the 5th leg, and yeah, as our rule, I probably shoot 85 to 90% of the deer that we harvest off sticks anyway. So I'm a big user of sticks. The green sticks that I've used all my career are quad sticks as well. So front and rear points of contact, which obviously makes them, fantastic sticks to use. And the Viperflex, same concept, just a little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, very good.
Are those garden canes going to go on the wall somewhere as a kind of memento of how many years service, or have they been relegated to the recycling bin?
No, I couldn't bring myself to retire them too swiftly, so they're actually still in the truck as a spare set in case I fall out with the Viperflex. So not that I have yet, I'll be honest, but I couldn't bring myself to fully retire them yet.
Very good. Nothing wrong with them. A slightly more probably challenging question from Katie Hargreaves, who we're a big fan of.
Certainly
who's,
are.
She has asked, what has been the most challenging hurdle that you've overcome in your business?
Good question. I mean, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't many challenges. Certainly coming into this industry as a younger generation, with it's a fairly elderly aged, I don't mean that in the wrong way, but the majority of people that are processing a larger volume of carcasses are of the older age group. So coming into it as back in 2017, I would have been 21, 22. So when I started the business up, that was very daunting and had a lot of questions thrown my way of what I was doing. So yeah, that was just finding my foot in the door and finding my niche in the market, and what we were doing was definitely a good, a big starting point on what we wanted to do. But as I say, I was lucky to have the carcasses and the ability to go out and harvest them. It was just working out what to do with those carcasses and make the best of them. So that was definitely a challenge. And then just being able to jump the big stepping stones you need to be able to jump to get to the ability to be compliant with the legislation and be able to make it financially viable is definitely, we can all go out and harvest X number of carcasses and process them for home consumption and kind of go through the loopholes of legislation. And there's the people out there that harvest those carcasses and back door of the restaurant and that side of stuff, which sadly isn't probably the right way of doing things, or isn't the right way of doing things. And we've had to jump through these loopholes of investing in infrastructure and our facilities to the best of my abilities and the best of the abilities that I think is needed for doing the best for the carcass, really. So yeah, big financial jumps, which definitely are a massive challenge to overcome and get your teeth into, and then not think you're doing the wrong thing, and go mad, really.
So a question that someone asked, and they asked me not to say who they were who'd asked it, not because I don't think they want you to know, but I think they're scared of getting in trouble with Food Standards Agency, Council, etc. And I say that because of what their question says, but it's sort of linked to what you were just alluding to. So their question was, do you find the FSA/Council unrealistic with their expectations/requirements for game meat businesses?
I think that's a very fair question, because depending on your output and your volume, it obviously depends where you sit in the market and sit regards to legislation. We're FSA approved as a business, so we've got a vet coming to site twice a week, inspecting our skinned carcasses, inspecting our small fur, inspecting our feathered game, and putting that recognizable stamp on the carcasses as well. And the paperwork, the infrastructure that's required, the equipment, all that side of things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking it in the slightest, because I think it is fantastic and it sets us where we need to be as an industry to produce that quality of product. But unless you're doing a certain volume, it does make things very tricky to make things financially sensible, but practically sensible. We're all doing things day to day to be physically possible, but it's got to make sense. And if you're just harvesting those few carcasses that you enjoy doing at the weekend, wanting to process them and deliver them to your restaurant, your butcher down on the high street, whichever made things, and keeping things local, which is fantastic, there is obviously those boundaries to be able to comply with legislation to get to that point. And I think it is tricky to make sure you're doing the right thing and not cutting corners, and making sure that product is right for the end consumer. And food safety is obviously of the utmost importance, and traceability is as well. And there's plenty of us out there that have come across hurdles with that. So it is, there's elements that you've got to get to a certain throughput, I think, to make things sensible, but obviously it's still got to be done.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Have you just going slightly off from listeners' questions?
Oh, Harold.
What do you make of the wild quality
Ooh.
British venison assurance scheme that's come out? Is it something you're going to sign up for, do you think?
In all honesty, my verdict is still out on that one. I need to know a little bit more about it, is the truth. I think obviously it's come out recently. It's got its pros and cons. It's got its legislation and its thoughts towards it. For the smaller stalkers or the people that are harvesting fewer carcasses, I think it's a good set of guidelines to look at and see what they can comply with and what they aren't complying with, and maybe improve what they're doing. Whether it's going to be something that everyone's going to be able to jump on board with, I think, as with everything in life, it's going to have its challenges for a lot of people to, get on board with. But, it'll be interesting to see how it develops, and I'm sure there will be different versions of it that come forward as well.
But given that I thought you were going to completely swerve that question, I think you've answered it very eloquently, actually. So well done.
Very good. And from your consumer's perspective, is there any demand, do you think, from restaurants, direct public members of the public, consumers, butchers, for something like that, and also for animals being shot with copper ammunition? Because a lot of the people we've spoken to basically are of the view that from the public's perspective and from the butchers, a lot of the butchers' perspective, they're not really that bothered.
Yeah. Sadly, I think you're right with that statement, which isn't possibly the best outcome and answer to that. But the high street butcher, the pubs, restaurants, and dare I say it, the end consumer, when you deliver direct to the door, aren't always aware of where that product's come from, not per se directly from us, but from other establishments and stuff like that. That carcass has been delivered to the butcher. They've got faith in the butcher, so they're purchasing off the butcher on the butcher's name, not from where that carcass has been harvested from. So from our point of view, having that FSA stamp of approval on every carcass, making sure it's 100% fit for the food chain, it is, the highest quality product going forward. It means a great deal to us. We have got customers that specify that it's FSA approved. So don't get me wrong, it is a necessity in some places, but for, dare I say it, 85% of our customers, it's not a necessity. It's something that we go above and beyond for. They would still probably happily buy venison off another person that isn't FSA approved, but is EHO approved and 5-star rating. There is that difference between the two levels that the customer probably doesn't appreciate in the same way as someone that's going through and having to go through the process step by step and get FSA accreditation approval and then inspections weekly, compared to your local authority council visit that's once a year at best to get your food standard, your rating. So there's different ways of looking at it, but I would love for all our wild venison across the UK to be FSA approved, checked, looked after in the best possible way. But the reality is there's so many of us out there enjoying going stalking, and that must continue because we've got such a fantastic population of deer in the UK. So we need all our recreational stalkers, we need our professional stalkers to be out there harvesting the deer, but the route to market is varied.
That I think, and sorry, we have gone massively off track here, and I'm going to blame Harold exclusively for that. That is, and I'm sorry, I've taken the bait because I can't resist, but that's my biggest concern with the wild venison quality assurance scheme is that we're possibly, yes, you might get more venison onto, say, supermarket shelves, etc., but I think you'll end up with less overall deer being culled, because probably people actually very similar to me who are not doing it professionally and at the moment have a route to market with their venison product will find that they probably don't have a route to market in the future. So logically for me, I'm therefore going to reduce the number of deer I shoot because I don't have an outlet for those carcasses, and there must be other people in the same boat. And so therefore, yes, you'll get more venison in supermarkets, but ultimately you'll get less deer being shot. And that I don't think is necessarily a good thing for the industry longer term.
No, long term as an industry, we need carcasses harvested. That's the black and white of it. You know, the deer population needs to be managed, whether it's by a professional stalker or a recreational stalker. It's just that route to market needs to be monitored in a slightly better way than it is now, which this new legislation is trying to do, but we don't want it to inhibit the functionality of deer management, quite frankly, and the actual going out and enjoying a stalk. So there's a fine balance, isn't there?
Yeah. I'll get off my soapbox now. So back to listener questions. We've had one from Josh Gregg Outdoors, who said, do you think there is an issue with deer stalkers hoarding permissions?
I would have thought most of the deer stalkers out there would probably agree and say they've come up with people keeping stuff possibly longer into retirement than they should do. To do deer management well, and to manage a population of deer, even if it's just over a small acreage, and even if it's just a roe deer population, you need to be on the ground and you need to be spending time monitoring the herd, culling the herd, and carrying out deer management. And sadly, there are many of us that don't want to let go, possibly because they don't have time because of work, or they've got to an age where they're not physically able to be out stalking all the time. And there's more than one piece of land that adjoins our deer management land that certainly the populations of deer look as a safe haven, because they know that said person only comes out twice a year. And you have to ask the question of, is that good deer management, or is that someone just being selfish and enjoying it for themselves? Obviously, again, fine balance, but we're all hopefully in it for the same thing, which is herd management, population management, and herd health. And unless you're out watching those deer, keeping an eye on the herd, and then inevitably pulling the trigger, you're not going to be able to carry out successful deer management, which you're not going to do if you're busy at work or in a state that you physically can't be out regularly. I'm not saying you've got to be out 7 days a week, but you want to be able to keep an eye on that population.
So I'm feeling guilty because I criticised Harry for going off piste. I'm now about to do the same. I'm now about to do exactly the same. So if he punches me, you know why. So in Scotland, and it was Sam Thompson, one of our previous guests, who taught us about this, I suppose, if we can put it that way, is that Nature Scot up there have the ability to intervene where they think deer managers or landowners aren't doing an effective job when it comes to deer management. So linked to what we've just said, that we think there probably are stalkers or land managers out there who are not necessarily doing a good sort of job, perhaps south of the border down here in England. Yeah. What would your comments be if Natural England, so the equivalent of Nature Scot, introduced something like that down here in England? Would you think that would be a good thing for us, or is that the establishment having too much control?
I think it would be a very harsh line to cross, but at the same time, if we can all put together a deer management plan across the summer, know what we're setting out to achieve, and as long as we get close to that goal, inevitably weather and other different factors are always going to inhibit, or you're going to have a play in the end result. But as long as we all have a deer management plan, whether it's written down on paper, an official document, or all just a number in our heads, and we're all giving it a good go, you're going to hopefully be looked upon as a good management structure, and you're doing your job. So a government agency coming in and suddenly going, X, you've not done your job properly, I think there's going to have to be a lot of evidence to prove that you're not doing your job properly to make that viable, which is going to be near enough impossible to prove, isn't it? So I don't know quite how that's going to happen on the blocks and parcels of land that we've got down here. We're not looking at massive estates and big parcels of land where you can focus in on those numbers. You're looking at 50 acres here, 100 acres there that are managed by different people, I think it's going to be quite hard to implement any sort of strategy that they can come in and go, you've not done your job properly.
It is one of the big challenges, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you say, it's small blocks of land, lots of different views, fallow populations that have a, habitat range of, 5 miles, let's say.
Yeah.
There isn't really a way around. It's always going to be quite a challenge. And we have very similar problems where we are, people owning blocks of woodland. They don't like shooting. They don't want people in there. And the deer just all live in there and they have a brilliant old time. And you can never, ever get on top of them.
No, they've all got safe havens, haven't they?
Yeah.
Exactly. Who can blame them?
So, conscious of time, Curtis, we've kept you for pretty well an hour already, but we've got one last bit of the podcast, which I promise is brief. And we possibly didn't realise how popular it was until we did our most recent podcast, I think, with Paul Hill, and we didn't do Bobby's Bits. And to be honest, I didn't think anyone would notice, but I think I had 2 or 3 messages on Instagram from people saying, "What happened to Bobby's Bits?" So we're going to have to make sure we do it with you. And if for anyone who's not familiar with Bobby's Bits, essentially we ask our our guest, if there are any bits of kit they're hankering after, but equally, what bit of kit couldn't they live without? And you're not allowed to say, for the last bit, you're not allowed to say you couldn't live without your rifle, for example, because that's just a given. And Bobby's Bits is named after Harry's younger brother, who, when he had his gap year, was living at home, working, and I think, obviously, because he wasn't paying for rent or a mortgage, had all the money in the world to go out and spend on deer stalking toys, which is exactly what he did. So, named after him. So, Curtis, what bit of kit are you hankering after?
In all honesty, in light of this season's weather, a hovercraft would have been fantastic. Carcass extraction has definitely been a challenge this season so far. And yeah, a hovercraft or some sort of flotation device to get us across the muddy fields would have been lovely. I don't know, something that I'm hankering after. I'm quite a basic person when I go stalking. It is literally myself, the dog, binoculars, my ember leaf knife, and my rifle. And obviously my sticks. I don't carry a whole host of different things that some people choose to do. No, there's nothing that's in, certainly from a actual stalking point of view, that we're desperate for. Carcass extraction, a sled, a new way of getting something out that's I've not come across in this respect. We use a drag rope and we rucksack things out if the conditions are properly, sticky. But yeah, if there's a new method of getting carcasses out, whether it's even your light fallow does through to your very chunky 70 kilo red hinds that we get down here in Devon. The quad bike and the Polaris have definitely had their work cut out this season, but it's still a mess. So yeah, no, that carcass extraction and keeping a carcass clean and hygienic, if there's a new bit of kit to do that would definitely be of interest. But yeah, binos with a rangefinder in is imperative, and we've got a good rifle and a knife and a set of sticks. So there's nothing in that respect that I'm desperate for to actually achieve the culling of a carcass, but getting that carcass out hygienically, if there's something new there, I'd be interested.
It's funny you say that, because I was going through the back catalogue of Field Sports Britain videos the other day, and there's a very good video, I must be 4 or 5 years old, of Tim Pilbeam going out stalking, and he has this amazing contraption that I've never seen before, which is like some sort of homemade aluminium. It is basically a wheelbarrow, but with like bicycle tires on it, and it looks amazing. And I scoured the internet to see if there was anything like that on the market, but there just isn't. And I just thought it's such a good idea.
You have to go to the fabricators.
I will. I have to go out and get one made.
But,
lightweight. Folds up to put in the back of his car, and then lift over a gate. What more do you need?
No, exactly.
Wait, it sounds like if you're getting one made, Harry, get another one made for Curtis.
That's too right.
Patent pending.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. Well, thank you very much, Curtis. Conscious we've taken up a lot of your time, and as we've just learned on the podcast, you're a very busy man. So a big thank you to you for joining, and good luck with your television appearance. And yeah, thank you very much to all our listeners. As per usual, remember to like, subscribe, comment. If you've got any questions for Curtis that we didn't ask tonight, pop them in whatever comments, whichever platform you're on, and we'll fire them across to him. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, gents. Thank you.